Have you ever traveled to another country, left a tip after a meal, and wondered if you were actually supposed to? If you're from the United States, tipping can feel almost automatic. You finish your meal, the check arrives, and you're already thinking, okay, 18%, 20%, or 25%. But here's the thing, tipping culture is not the same everywhere in the world. In some countries, tipping is not normally expected. In fact, automatically leaving a large tip can sometimes feel unusual because good service is already considered part of the job. So, if you're planning an international vacation, here are 5 countries where you generally don't need to worry about tipping in everyday situations. And make sure you stay until the end because understanding tipping etiquette can save you money and help you avoid an awkward moment while traveling. Let's start with Japan. Japan is probably one of the most well known countries when it comes to tipping culture. In everyday situations, tipping is generally not expected. You go to a restaurant, enjoy your meal, pay your bill, and you're done. You don't normally need to add an extra 15 or 20% just because you received good service. And here's something that can surprise travelers from the United States. If you leave cash on the table and walk away, the staff may think you accidentally forgot your money. They may even come after you to return it. That's because excellent service is generally considered part of the experience. So instead of reaching for your wallet to leave a tip, a simple thank you and respectful behavior are usually the better way to show your appreciation. Japan is a perfect example of why you should never assume that your country's tipping habits apply everywhere. Now, let's move to number 2, South Korea. In South Korea, tipping is also generally not expected in ordinary restaurants and cafes. Imagine you're visiting Seoul. You sit down for Korean barbecue, enjoy your food, receive good service, and the bill arrives. You generally pay the amount on the bill without automatically adding another 20%. This can feel very different if you're used to American tipping culture. And you've probably experienced this before. You buy something for $10 and suddenly a screen appears asking whether you'd like to leave 15, 20, or even 30%. In South Korea, everyday transactions generally don't work that way. Of course, there can be exceptions. Upscale hotels, luxury services, or businesses that cater heavily to international tourists may have different practices. So the important thing is not to think, I should never tip. Instead, think, I shouldn't automatically assume a tip is required. That's a much better rule when you're traveling. Now, let's talk about number 3, China. China is another country where traditional tipping isn't generally part of everyday dining culture in many situations. If you're eating at a normal local restaurant, you typically aren't expected to automatically add a percentage to your bill. You pay what you owe and go on with your day. But there's an important detail here. China is a huge country, and tipping practices can vary depending on the city, the business, and the type of service you're receiving. Tourist focused businesses, luxury hotels, high end restaurants, and international establishments may have different expectations. So don't take this as a rule that says never tip in China. The better takeaway is don't automatically assume that tipping is required, and that distinction can make a big difference when you're traveling. Now let's head to the other side of the world. Number 4, Australia. Australia doesn't have the same standard tipping culture that many Americans are used to. When you go out to eat, you generally aren't expected to automatically add 15, 18, or 20% to your bill. You simply pay the amount you're charged. Of course, Australians can tip. If you receive fantastic service and want to show your appreciation, leaving something extra is absolutely possible. But it's generally more of a choice than an automatic obligation. And this is something American travelers sometimes find refreshing. You don't necessarily have to sit there doing math after every meal. No calculator, no debating whether 20% is enough, no staring at the payment screen wondering what percentage you should choose. You can simply pay your bill. And finally, number 5, New Zealand. New Zealand is another destination where tipping isn't normally expected in everyday situations. You can go to a restaurant, enjoy your meal, pay your bill, and leave without feeling like you've forgotten an important step. Again, that doesn't mean tipping is forbidden. If someone provides exceptional service and you genuinely want to give them something extra, you can. But there